So the new iPadOS 17 for the iPad. Short version, everything that's new on the iPhone, except Journal, which hasn't come to the iPhone yet, but it's not coming to the iPad. That's it, really. Okay. While the new free iPad update really is the same as the iPhone's iOS 17, with maybe a tiny smattering of the new macOS Sonoma as well, maybe sort of in a bit work with me on that, this update on these devices, it does feel different. I've relished iOS 17 on the iPhone, and actually I've particularly enjoyed macOS Sonoma on the Mac. iPadOS 17 brings features to the iPad that will make it a little bit extra useful to you and me as writers. I mean, iPad's such a great writing tool, and we can take it anywhere. When you and I are done talking, now I'm going back over there to the Warsaw Art Gallery, where I'm going to be running a workshop, and all of my notes, everything, the whole plan, the idea, it's right here on this sheet of glass. Hello, I'm William Gallagher, and this is 58 Keys, which as ever, as always, is for writers like you and me who use and who write on Macs and iPhones, and today in particular, iPads. Do subscribe or support 58 Keys on Patreon, because there's always so much to talk about, but perhaps especially now when there's a new release of the iPad OS for it. A lot of what we want to talk about this time, it's just nice. I mean, I don't think, for instance, the new lock screen, okay, I don't think the new lock screen on the iPad is going to help you write better, but it might encourage you to write a bit more. It might also speed things up. The new lock screen, right? I mean, they call it that. It's the thing you see when you wake up the iPad, fine. And of course, I mean, it's gorgeous, isn't it? Beautiful screen. Whether it's your photography or Apple's, then everything just looks really sharp and fine, and it's a pleasure to look at, a pleasure to read. But if it is an Apple wallpaper, or if you use a live photo that you've taken, a photo where your iPhone, like it records a second's worth of video either side of the shot you took, well then, when that's on your lock screen, the lock screen animates. You pick up your iPad, you see this gorgeous photo, and it's moving. And then, you swipe down to open the iPad to get on with work, and that photo settles down into being your wallpaper. It is the smallest of tiny things, but it's so well done. But actually, we just opened it. Let's step back again to the lock screen proper. I don't want to diminish, that moving wallpaper thing, but there's something on the lock screen now that's changed that arguably, not even arguably, I think it's more directly, maybe a bit dull, directly practical and useful. You can now have little widgets on your lock screen. So, in my case, without actually even opening the iPad, it's up on the screen to wake it up, and I can see the time in New York, I can see my next calendar appointments, I can see the date, the temperature, and for some reason, stocks. I don't know. Look, the truth is, I added those widgets just to see how do widgets work then, and what are they like, and I haven't gone back to change them since. But I'm really surprised how much I'm using these. I mean, the time one, for example, I constantly need to know different time. I should look into it more, really, is what I should do. One more thing on the lock screen. And before we even use the iPad, the lock screen is useful. Live activities. Now, I use this on my iPhone a lot, especially since I now have an iPhone 15 Pro, which is an always-on screen. So there it is on the table next to me. I can just glance at the screen and see, how long have I got left on the parking, for example. I have previously also used it for flight information, like how long to boarding and things like that. And now you can do this on the iPad too. Actually, we're not quite done with widgets yet. Not entirely quite. I don't know. Once you have, got around to finally open the iPad to do some work, well, you've got more widgets. You can have these widgets wherever you like, but now they're more useful. They're interactive. A widget, it used to be solely this little thing. It was a display of some information from an app, so weather from the weather app or something like that, which was useful. You didn't have to go into the app, you just looked at it, there it was, get on with your work. But it was solely a display of information from an app. And if you were to tap on the widget, well, it just said, okay then, and off it opened the app. Now, the widgets work by themselves. They are this interactive thing. If I choose to have the Home Apps widget, for example, on my screen more than at any time I like, I can tap on it to turn a light on or off right there in the widget. There's no opening the Home app, finding the bit I want, and then just on off. Yeah. Or I can play and pause music. You see the benefit, but to use these widgets, right? I mean, I just sound like I'm knocking them now. You have to be at the home screen. You've unlocked it, you're at it, but you can't be in an app. So working. So if I open the iPad and then I open Pages or Scrivener or Word or something, and I start writing, well, all those widgets, they're gone. They're no use to me. They're on the desktop. On the iPad, then, I think the lock screen widgets that are just right there are useful for us. I think these regular widgets, if you like, can be handy, particularly with the on-off interactivity thing. But their worth is more use to us on the Mac, or at least actually on the Mac when you've got a large monitor. Okay. But this one is definitely useful for you and me as writers on an iPad. The new iPadOS 17 brings the same PDF improvements to Apple Notes that are on the Mac, and they are really good. I mean, I think excellent. Previously, for example, Apple Notes was really useful. You could just chuck PDFs into a note, keep chucking them away, and it'd hold them for you, it would store them. It's all very nice, and they're always available. But but then to read them, you would have to come out of the notes they were in. You would find the note, find the PDF, tap on it, and it would open the PDF up in another app. If you wanted to check through a couple of PDFs or something, well, it was a chore. Now, when you add a PDF to an Apple Note, it displays like this. That is the whole PDF ready to read right there in the note, and you can swipe left and right to read through the pages. It's a little smaller than it would be when you open another app, but it's perfectly legible on an iPad. Or, for example, if you have a second PDF in the same note, well, you can scroll down a bit and then be swiping left and right, and that's up, down, left. I don't know why that's so useful, but it is. There are other PDF features now in Notes, such as if you have an Apple Pencil, it's quicker to use the pencil to make notes on the note, and PDF forms that will fill in. Notes will detect that you've got a PDF form, and it will let you easily tap to just, this is the name bit, that's the email address, whatever. It will do all of that, but I say will because it will later in the year. Also, but actually available right now, and so good, you can link notes together. So say you're doing research on something, or you're making character notes on something, and you've ended up with 100 Apple notes about this project you're writing. Well, you can make yourself a 101st note, and in that add links to each of the others. It's like you could make your own you can make your own table of contents kind of thing in a note, and then just skip around everywhere. So quick information widgets and the lock screen, good, plus interactive widgets. So you can find out things, you can see things, you can do things quicker and get back to your writing. Similarly, new PDF tools so you can manage research more easily. Okay, all great, but I think it's time for something that directly helps your writing and mine. And if you haven't used this yet, I suspect if you were to come cold to this, you think it's clever, but maybe not for you. Once you have used it, though, that changes. I expect once you've used it, you're going to be hooked, as I am. All it is predictive text. But instead of offering to complete the word you're writing now, correct the spelling, the end of it, it does that, yeah, but then it offers one more or two more, or maybe three subsequent words that you are likely to want to type next. When it's got it right, where you just tap the space bar and those words are entered as if you type them. They're entered, your cursor's in them, you just keep on typing whatever you want to do next. And when the word or words are not right and not what you want, well, you just ignore them. You keep typing what you want to keep on typing, and they go away. Sorry, didn't mean to bother you. It hasn't yet got to the stage for me that I miss these predictions when they're not coming up for some reason, or if I'm on somebody else's machine and they're not there at all. But it's close. This thing should be supremely distracting, but it's actually just really useful. You find yourself, you're typing away, you read the suggested words, and the next thing you know, it's like, yeah, that's it, and you've moved on. It is exactly as if you've typed them yourself, but it's faster. And there's more. There's actually quite a bit more. As you use iPadOS 17, it learns the kind of phrases you use. I mean, not enough to rip you off by sending blackmail letters in your jokey tone of voice, but enough that those words that it suggests are more and more likely to be useful for you. Now here's the thing. I like Apple's Messages app. I like it a lot, and I use it as my default choice. But I am in the UK, where WhatsApp is much more commonly used. WhatsApp is such an ugly app, but what can you do? So maybe the reason that I'm not personally all that interested in the new Messages features in iPadOS 17, that it's just that I doubt that I'll think of them to use them, because half the time I'll be in WhatsApp and they won't work. I mean, but they are good. They do make messages better. I mean, all right, there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff about stickers and emojis. Yeah. Tell you what, when there's a great song written only in emoji, maybe then I'll listen. Maybe then I'll use emojis. But I like these word things. Yeah, people keep telling me that emoji can convey so much more of your tone of writing than actual writing can, to which the only obvious answer is write better. Push the right aside. Anyway, if you do use these things, well then Apple's now put emojis and stickers and whatever else they are all in one place called the sticker drawer. Everything in one place. Kind of seems like the way it should always have been. I don't understand why it wasn't, but apparently it wasn't, and now it is. Okay. Excuse me. I would like to thank Apple for giving us one single place to completely ignore or to find something, so we're not hunting around, we can get on with things. Actually, speaking of ignoring, something I've ignored up to now, not for any real good reason, is there's this thing called Messages apps that maybe you use a lot. While you're in a message conversation, right, with someone, you can use an app to do something more than send text back and forth. You can send them photos. You could send them details, apparently, of the music that you're listening to right now. And I just bet they'll thank you for that. Couldn't got through the day without that. But you can also send location, and that's actually one thing that's improved. Right now, iPadOS 17, Messages, instead of going out to maps and piddling about with it, you can be in the message chat and send your current location to whoever you're talking to. You can send them to each other. So there's no more, I'm 5 minutes away. There's just prove it. Show me a map. That's quite violent, Annie. Look, there are lots and lots of Messages apps, and I haven't used any of them. But I am sure that at some point soon, I'm going to be using the new check-in on the iPhone. And so I know I should look into how that works on Messages on the iPad, if it does. I should look into it more. And Apple has again put everything in one place. And again, they weren't already, but it's useful. Yeah. I want two more things. Just as on the iPhone, right? Audio messages that you're getting messages. So two more things in Messages really is what I mean. They will now be transcribed for you. Just written out right there. Save all that tedious listening. And if you're in a conversation with a lot of people on Messages and you've had to dip out, to do some actual writing work, then when you come back, Messages will now say you were here. This is the last message that you wrote. Here are all the other ones, all the ones you've missed. So you rejoin the conversation where you want. And I have been in plenty of conversations like that. But again, UK, it tends to be ugly WhatsApp. What can you do? The other day, right, I saw a TV show where someone mentioned that they were going to be FaceTiming somebody, and it really seemed odd. FaceTime should be the name for video calls. FaceTime, Apple's FaceTime, should be what Zoom has become recently. Everybody using it everywhere. And back when FaceTime first came out, well, it was a huge thing. It was video conferencing that anyone could use, except anyone didn't actually mean anyone. When Steve Jobs launched FaceTime in 2010, can you believe 2010? He said that here it is, great, all that stuff, magical, whatever he said, but he also said it's going to become an open standard, and that would mean PC users could use FaceTime. It would mean Android users could join in FaceTime conversations too. Today, 12 years later, you can make that happen. You can have Windows and Android users on a FaceTime call, but only if they go to a web browser and you, as the owner of an iPad, iPhone or Mac, start the FaceTime call, and then send them a link to it. It just, yeah, that took until 2021. Actually, that came in. So that was 11 years after FaceTime started, and it's not going to happen. It's no conversation going to be like that. But if you are on an iPad, an iPhone, or a Mac, and you want to have a video chat with someone else who's on an iPad, iPhone, or Mac, then I do think FaceTime is exceptionally good. And it's also now, in iPadOS 17, it's been improved. Now, if you FaceTime someone and they don't answer, you can leave a video message for them. I truly did not know you couldn't do that before. Anyway, but you can now. And there's a thing where that thing you message you leave can be saved to photos for them. So it's like a memory to keep. Also, just as with the iPhone, the iPad can now act as a camera while you make a FaceTime call from your television set. I mean, you do have to have a TV set with an Apple TV 4K box plugged in the side. Has to be the latest generation as well, so mine a little bit out. You can do video conferencing calls in your living room. I'm sounding oddly sarky about all of this. I don't know. Maybe it's just I'm still thinking about emojis. Things. Yeah, okay. FaceTime, right, it's more limited than you would want it to be, although we were promised it was going to be a decade or more ago. But I really like FaceTime. I prefer it to Zoom for the sound and the picture quality. So it being on your TV set, if your TV set can support it, excellent. I don't really see me having Writers Guild meetings while I'm on my couch, having a sandwich or something, but you can. I could. Speaking of being on the couch, you put this in my head. There is a thing that's new to the iPad that I think is marvellous. It's the Health app. It used to be solely on the iPhone. Now it's on the iPad too, and I think that changes things. I think it changes things a surprising amount, because now you can record your health information. You have a workout, log how you're feeling in the mental health section, actually, which is also new to iPhone and iPad and is excellent. I've been using that for months now. I don't know why it's so fascinating, but it is. So you record that information on your iPhone and then work with it on the iPad. So larger screen, more detail at once. You can examine and you can work from your health data instead of just ignoring it as much as you possibly can. Speaking of ignoring, actually the truth is, the thing with iPadOS 17 and iOS 17 and all of them, there are so many new things or just slightly updated things, just so many of them. I think none of the rest are ones that will particularly help what I do as a writer. But that doesn't mean it won't help you as a writer, though. And actually, it doesn't mean that either of us might not just like them a lot. So while, I think you and I have now covered what iPadOS 17 brings you and me and most writers best, there are 3 things more that I'd like you to know about if you don't already. One is Stage Manager. This is the iPad and the Mac feature that helps you work in a couple of apps at the same time. I don't need any help to do that. I don't need any help to get lost in a sea of apps and documents. But Stage Manager, it lays out apps, it groups them together. It does all sorts of things to try to help you get more done. I tried it last year when it was brand new. I tried it again this year when it's been updated. And now the big update is it's added the ability for you to resize windows. So you've got 2 and you just, I don't need that one much. I can just squeeze it off to the corner. The thing is, I use a lot of iPad. Actually, I tell you what, let's figure this out. How many iPad apps do I use? If you go to Settings, General, About, and scroll down, there it is. I have 141 apps. Is that a lot? I'm not sure, actually. Don't really know a proper way to do this, but just looking at the screen, it seems to me like I use around 70 regularly. Yeah. But as great as it is to have 70 apps and to switch between them all the time, having so many, using so many, I still kind of like concentrating on one at a time. On the iPad, on the Mac somehow, well, I'm all over the place, like constantly switching from drafts to Slack to Omni Outliner to Mail to OmniFocus to Safari to just round and round all over the place. A second here, a minute there. On the iPad, I don't tend to use multiple apps. I seem to try to concentrate, so that helps me with my writing. I do think Stage Manager is a bit clunky. I do think you spend as much time arranging the apps and then trying to find the one that you wanted next as you do without Stage Manager, but it might suit you better than it suits me. Wait, did I mention Safari is one of the things I go to? Safari has something good. Safari now lets you set up profiles. So today I'm at work. This is my work profile, please. Safari, please give me the sites that I use for work, and when I log into, say, Twitter, automatically log me in as my work self, my company account, whatever. But now, it's evening, and I am done with work in the evening. I don't know. Give me my personal profile, please. And now, when I log into Twitter, ask me why. Safari also lets you share passwords more easily if you want to do so. It's better than it was. Actually, it's good now at taking verification codes. You get sent an email, seeing that they come in the email, popping them in to a dialog box for you. And this could be good for us. The searching in Safari, well, it's supposed to be faster, and I'm not really sure about that, but I do think it's true that it shows results better. It shows them more clearly, as does the last thing I want to be sure that we talk about, Spotlight. On the Mac, yeah, forget it. As good as Spotlight is, I've long replaced it with Alfred 5, and there are other alternatives. But on the iPad, it's Spotlight or it's nothing. And fortunately, Spotlight gets better every year. The key improvement this time is that Spotlight, it's like it realizes, it's copped onto the fact that if you use it to search for the music app, well, then it's likely your next step is to go open the music app and then choose something, choose the favorite mix or something like that. So right now, if in Spotlight, if you search just for music, you get music, but you also get suggestions for the next thing you are most likely to want to do, to play something, that kind of thing. Slightly oddly though, two slightly odd things, have a look at those suggestions it's offering me. They're the suggestions that Spotlight has showed me based on the fact that I've searched for music. Now, I like Churches very much, but I don't believe I've ever heard that song. And I have not one single clue what podcast music jazz summer is. Not one. Not a notion. Where does this come from? You know, I'm going to go listen to some Churches music. Well, no, I'm not actually, after the workshop. Well, I think we take this so much for granted now, but isn't it startling that we can write on something that will at the same time play us music? Or when I go back into that art gallery, I have the workshop plan on here, like I said, but I could, well, no, actually, I'm working with children, so I won't do this, but I could record the workshop on it. I mean, I could film it, couldn't I? I feel a bit silly, but you could do it. And then actually tonight, I'm not at home, I have to stay away from home, and actually this thing I need to write, so I'll write it on this, but I'll also read a book. I'll read a script. I read a script every day. I'll read one on this. I'll watch a film. I'll watch live TV through it, something like that. iPads are this pane of glass, and we can do all of this stuff on them. That's just remarkable to me. And I think one of the real benefits, like an overall benefit of iPadOS 17, is that somehow it makes you feel like you've got a new iPad. A free update and everything feels new. That's it for 58 Keys. Thank you very much for watching. Now, take care of yourself. Write more on iPads, Macs, iPhones. Paper if you must. And I'll see you soon.